Welcome to Still Serving, the VFW podcast, the official podcast of the Veterans of Foreign Wars. And now, from the VFW Memorial Building in Washington, D.C., here's your host, Rob Couture.
And welcome to Still Serving. I'm your host, Rob Couture. Let's do roll call. It's going to be a short one. Joining me here in our Zoom land is our executive director, Ryan Gallucci, for the VFW's Washington, D.C. office, and our national director of Veteran Service, Mike Figlioli. As always, thank you, gentlemen. You know, the reason why we did Zoom today is because we didn't quite have snow again, but we did have some more snow that dumped on us. I mean, the snowcrete in January really threw everything for a loop, so it kind of threw off all of our planning, but that's okay. We decided, you know what? We're not going to take another snow day. We got a lot of things to get to and talk to, and last week just begs for us to have this podcast. So welcome and thank you.
Oh, thanks, Rob. It's good to be here. I'd rather be in the studio than we have, but for those who normally watch us, maybe just listen to this one on audio, because adapt and overcome. But at the same time, we have a ton to talk about. And look, just because my kids are on a remote school day doesn't mean that the work doesn't stop. So,
yeah. Absolutely. Thanks, Ryan. And Mike, thank you. You know, I don't know what's going on. It looks like you have one of those glamour shot filters on, Instagram filters, because your skin looks so fantastic, I have to admit.
It looks like I
So
might need a
smooth.
kidney transplant, though. Liver transplant, huh? A little yellow.
He's radiant. Radiant? I don't know.
Yeah, he's a radiant.
Oh, that made
That's
it worse.
worse.
No, turn that back on. There you go.
Well, as Ryan had told me before we got on, he's like, hey, you know what? If people want to, they could just go and listen to it on Spotify or whatever their favorite podcast platform is. We don't quite have a quorum today. We did invite some other people if they could join us. But, hey, we're just going to keep, like the Army, just keep rolling along. So, Ryan, what topics do we have today?
All right, I'm gonna unblur. So, even though I'm at home, got a whiteboard. So
Yes, you do.
some
Check it
things
out.
never change. But all right, we got a few topics to talk about. The first and foremost, that's probably gonna take up a lot of our time, is the regulatory change last week to 38 CFR 4.10. I'll just leave it at that. You've probably seen it on the internet. You've probably seen our statements from the commander in chief. You may have commented yourself. Mike and I are going to talk. Well, Rob, Mike and I are going to talk about it, all
Yeah.
three of us. We're going to talk a little bit about claim sharks. And, there's been a lot happening over the last few weeks. We've talked about it in the last few podcasts. And guess what? Even more is happening that we need to talk about here today.
Mhm.
We're going to talk about WashCon. The VFW is flying in next week. And for all things VFW business and to meet with legislators, and our commander in chief is going to testify. And we'll talk a little bit about what those priorities are that our VFW members are going to walk around the Hill with next week. And then, as always, we will have hopefully some time for the good of the order.
For the good of the order. We don't quite have a quorum today, Mike, so I hope, you can not call me out on the rules of having a real meeting. But, Mike, the reason why I go to you is because last week, actually, it happened last weekend. I'm going to hand it over to you because you really can give the play-by-play of what happened. But I would just want to say this right now. You were a phenomenal lead advocate spokesperson for the VFW last week. But man, was it a fight. Can you tell us exactly what happened last weekend with this, what seemed to be an unpublished rule change that didn't go out for people to kind of make comment on? How did you come
Yeah,
about that?
thanks, Rob.
Mm.
Last weekend it started with an email, and alerting us to the fact that Monday was a holiday, so effectively Tuesday, the first day of business back, that VA had amended 38 CFR 4.10 in an interim rule and invited public comment for 60 days. What
Now,
that did,
for those that are
Well,
out there, what exactly is that
interim
38
final
CFR?
rule.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interim final rule. So the CFR is a code of federal regulation. Part four is where raters and advocates are able to look at diagnostic codes and where they assign their percentages and rate disabilities out of the 38 CFR Code of Federal Regulation Part 4. Correlates to the United States Code, so there's a 38 United States Code 4.10, so it's very similar. But what it effectively did was change the way that raters consider evidence when somebody submits a disability claim. Um, and I hope I'll get all the parts in here because there's a number of moving parts. But we tell veterans, VA, when you go for your exam, if you're having a good day because medication is taking effect, tell them about your worst day.
Hmm.
So basically, they said in this interim final rule that now they have to rate as if the veteran was medicated, and if they can't do that, then they have to speculate. So this was supposed to remove the speculation, and I said a lot last week about potentially lowering disability ratings because if you've got pins, plates, and screws in your arm because it was rebuilt from an IED blast or whatever the situation might be, and then you're taking your prescribed painkillers and you've got decent range of motion now and not as much pain, well, that's what they want it rated on. So essentially, you would be lowering not just the disability, but the effects of medication, the ameliorative, I can't even say that word.
Ameliorative effects. I don't know.
Ameliorative effects of medication. So you're having a good day, you're going to show greater range of motion, and you're going to get rated on that. But the point was, it doesn't negate the underlying disability.
Hmm.
And the court in Ingram and McDonough had said
Ingram
that
v. Collins.
Ingram v. Collins and
And
I think
Jones v.
McDonough,
Shinseki.
Jones v. Shinseki, yes, thank you.
That's going back a
Um,
ways.
yeah. But they said that you can't. VA couldn't take into account the effect of medication. They needed to rate on the existing underlying disability or illness. Our concern is one, the effect it would have on ratings. The other concern is Ingram talks mostly about musculoskeletal 4.71A in the CFR,
This guy's getting
whereas
technical today.
yeah, but whereas 4.10 talks about the overall rating process.
Yeah.
So VA could interpret this, even though Ingram was related solely to musculoskeletal disabilities, they were using that argument to go back towards the Shinseki decision and kind of end around. It was a bit of a mess. So our stance was, we want veterans to be compensated as they deserve to the maximum extent allowable by law. I mean, that's fair, right? You
Yeah.
served, you got injured, you deserve it. And we also don't want veterans not taking prescribed medications.
Right.
Yeah.
And I said a number of times in a number of media interviews that I did that we run that risk. Somebody may panic, may not understand the effects of all this. And if they are on heavy antidepressants for PTSD, do we want to really take the chance of now this individual becoming suicidal because they didn't dose themselves because they thought they were going to have some benefit taken away? That's kind of my observation in a nutshell. I'll let Ryan jump in real quick and happy to talk some more about it.
So in a nutshell, and you and I had a lot of conversations about this too, because when we were first tipped off about this, it was a non-published
That's what I
interim
wanted to get
final
to. I
rule.
forgot that part.
Yeah, because it came in over the weekend, no days off, I guess. But taking a look at it was an unpublished interim final rule, which means it's a little weird. On the Federal Register, you can read what they might propose, but it also could change. And so on Tuesday morning, we all logged on to the Federal Register. We're like, okay, what's the final one actually say? And it was pretty much the same what we had read over the weekend. I think what caught me by surprise was that it was an interim final rule and that it was such a drastic change, right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
we kind of captured it in when we were talking to the commander in chief and she prepared her statements that we're talking about unintended consequences here, because when you're reading through VA's justification, they say several times, look, we think the court's got it wrong. We're allowed to amend our regulations. We don't want doctors speculating on how medication affects a rating decision. I mean, okay, I can kind of see where you're coming from, or you don't want your doctor speculating. Like I go into the doctor, I don't want the doctor guessing. Was maybe I don't know, maybe it's not so bad, right?
Yeah.
But when I was reading the final rule, and I pulled it up here on screen number two, that you can't see if you're watching. Please don't
That's
watch.
okay.
Please listen.
That's all right.
But,
Well, for those that are
yeah.
watching, we'll go ahead and edit it in.
But really, so they added a couple of sentences to this to ensure that disability evaluations are based on the actual level of functional impairment under the ordinary conditions of daily life. The medical examiner will not estimate or discount improvements to disability due to the effects of medication or treatment. I think they could have ended right there, but they go on. Whether or not medication or treatment is included within specific rating criteria, if medication or other treatment lowers the level of disability, the rating will be based on that lower disability level. Those last two, for me, open it up to a ton of interpretation, and I think that's really what caught the veterans community by surprise.
Yeah.
It's like, look, okay, I think we can have a discussion on whether a doctor is able to estimate or guess how medication's affecting something. But the way that I read this is that if you're looking at a condition that in the rating schedule says, okay, I use asthma as an example, right?
Yeah.
If you have a rescue inhaler, it's this rating. If you need steroids like prednisone so many times, it's this rating and it goes up from there. Like, are you basically saying I don't consider that? And so to me, this is what the public comment period is for, right? So making this an interim final rule, it's day after President's Day. This is the new rules moving forward. Hand up. We got questions. What
Yeah.
does this mean?
Yeah.
What are you trying to do? And then you saw it all across the internet. The veterans talking about, well, does this mean they're going to lower my mental health rating? Does this mean if I have a prosthetic, look, some of that I think got a little bit alarmist.
Sure. Sure.
I had some conversations with people about mental health specifically, and look, sometimes I and Mike, you and I disagreed on this. I didn't think the sky was falling, right? But man, the way they went about this
Yeah, totally
invites
out of
all kind of questions.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
totally out of regular order. I mean, no notice. Not they didn't follow the usual process, and then they cited good cause. And in looking up some of these things that you get forced to do when you get thrust into these situations, I'm definitely not a lawyer, but even what I read, even to cite good cause, um, I think that would have failed had it been litigated, because I think that was more an excuse than a good reason to go ahead and put this forth. Now, the thing to be aware of is, if you saw the Secretary's press release, that they will not be going forward to enforce this. I don't want to get verbatim because I don't remember exactly, but something like anytime soon now or anytime soon. But the interim final rule is still standing.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
is something that we need to remind ourselves, although there's not going to be any, or they say there's not going to be any further action based on their actions. I would feel much better if the rule was just rescinded and we went back to what the world was like last Friday
Yeah. I
or the Friday
mean,
before.
I tell you what, it was there was a wide spectrum on social media, but more towards the panic side of what is going on here. I will say that.
Yeah.
From VSOs putting out their statements like we did, and those were all varied. Some of them were very curt. Others were like us, raising concern. Hey, we have serious concerns of what's going on here. To others trying to kind of tamper down a little bit of what was going on. But I tell you what, when you go into a full theater, movie theater, and you light a Bic lighter, someone's going to call fire. Now that you may not, that fire may not be touching anything. You might just stand there with your Bic lighter on, like, oh, it's just a Bic lighter. But man, that has
Where's he going with
potential,
this analogy?
right? It has potential for that to torch everyone. So, um, Yeah, so that's what ended up happening. Even before it was published, it was put out by, certain commentators online, and it just went crazy. So I tell you what, from a public affairs standpoint, it was not great to have to backpedal on that one for the VA. And I tell you what, they said they're not going to enforce it into the future. It still stands. So we put out a following statement after our initial one and sent the VA a letter. Right, Ryan? You got the response back, and we were like, "Hey, you know what? This doesn't cut the mustard. You guys got to rescind this rule, rather." So
Yeah, VA's first response was a bit curt. So, and some of this was in the task and purpose stories and the like that, I'm paraphrasing. We don't know what the big deal is. This is how VA's been rating claims since 1958.
to Mike, what did you say?
Well, if that was the case, then we wouldn't have had to go to court 3 times for judicial review.
Right,
Mhm.
exactly.
Has not
Uh,
been the case.
since 1958. So, so that's kind of the crazy thing here is, all right, so we are where we are. Things seem to have calmed down, but I will tell you, the backlash that came from that is still going on. I mean, one of the
Hmm.
things that we encouraged and many others did was, hey, now they opened it up for public comment. We have till I think April. Um, jump in there and make your voice known. And since last week, how many comments are we up to now, Ryan?
Oh, that's let me hit refresh. We are at more than 18,400. Oh, wait. You know what? Uh yeah, 18.48K. Yeah, so 18 more than 18,000.
More
Yeah.
than 18,000 comments have
And
So
it's
come.
that's
still coming
doubled.
in
That's
as of
doubled in
this
a week, and
morning.
there's still 4 weeks to go,
Yeah.
5 weeks to go in the comment period.
Well, I
Same.
mean,
Yeah.
look, this is the veteran community really coming together behind this, and that was really encouraging for me to see. For see all the veteran like rowing in the same direction. That was phenomenal, for the most part. So, and I think there people are, oh wow, we do have are recognizing we do have a voice, and they do listen to us. Um, and that just means we got to continue to stay focused, be vigilant, and keep our nose to the grindstone, keep pressing forward.
Well, I think that's the important part for veterans to take away from this. So, I will argue, I think the debate is out there on what this change meant and what VA intended, right?
Hmm.
Because in their justification, they talk about how, okay, we'd have to rework the 350,000 claims that are currently pending.
Yeah,
And that was one of their justifications for, waiving the Administrative Procedures Act. Uh, I think we would disagree with that. But the counterpoint to that, if that is their justification, then it doesn't seem reasonable that VA is going to start reviewing all of these rating decisions and reducing ratings because that would negate all of the budgetary purposes. I mean, look, Mike, you and I have operated inside this process for years. You're talking about the VA personnel, the raters, the examiners, the contract examiners, the
Yep.
RVSRs. Like, for the sky to be falling, it would cost way more. Like I mean, it's almost absurd. But that's why we talked about unforeseen consequences.
yeah,
And that's the danger of the veteran going in for a routine future exam. And it looks like things improved, but they only improved because of medication and some of these things, chronic illnesses can be episodic. And
yeah,
and when we comment to the Federal Register on other things like mental health, we're always very careful to make sure that VA's rating schedule takes into account the full record and not just the latest episode of care because things can ebb and flow. Um, and I think that's what our major concern is. Uh, I'm encouraged by the volume of comments on this
mhm,
too, because again, I think it reinforces the importance of going through normal order and posting these things for public comment.
right,
Um, I will concede that I think that in the context of Ingram and VA's disagreement on it, that it may even require Congress just speaking on this, because if you're taking VA for their justification, they basically say, look, the courts have told us multiple times we're interpreting the regulations wrong. We don't think so. Okay, so when you have two branches of the government disagreeing with each other, go to the third one and ask what they intended,
Yeah,
especially when they're
right.
talking about congressional intent, right? Because that's kind of the argument here is VA saying Congress intended this. The courts are saying Congress intended that. How about we ask Congress?
Right. Right.
What did you intend, Congress?
Yeah. So Mike, let me go back to you. As the person who leads our, what is it, more than 5,000 members, cadre members out there that are, you know, around the world that are helping veterans and doing their claims. Um, what's the word that you can give to them to give to veterans that may not have gotten all the information and are very concerned?
They just need to tell them right now nothing's changing. It's still resembling the normal process.
Yeah,
They don't have to worry about their rating being reduced or reworked. That's not going to go forward.
yeah,
And if they already had a disability that was rated, VA generally will grandfather things, much for the reasons that Ryan spoke about earlier, that it would
yeah,
be less cost effective to go back and adjudicate hundreds of thousands of claims. So I had told some people last week, Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever the rule was and whatever your rating was on Thursday, um, it's going to remain that way for now. So it's
yeah,
just, tell them clearly, and you don't have to get deep in the woods on it. It's simple. It's resembling status quo, to use that term,
yeah,
for the foreseeable future. But however, we are watching, we are looking.
Mhm.
We will make sure that we are looking at VA and ask for a seat at the table next time something like this comes up, so we can work it out beforehand and avoid these situations.
and that was part of our letter, right, Ryan? I mean, we had asked them, "Hey, we are willing to work with you. We're open to dialogue. Talk to us about this sort of thing before you
Yeah.
go and and do what you just did and then have to walk it back, or at least say, hey, look, we're ensuring that everyone applying for benefits receives everything they have earned. That's, I'm reading off the social media post there, as quickly and conveniently as possible. But it does affect new ratings. Did I get that one right? That's a question that was out there too. So for new people that are applying for ratings, do you think that they're going to enforce that rule with them as well,
No,
or not at all?
no,
No.
it's going to resemble like it has for all these past years until they
Yeah,
get it figured out.
yeah,
So if
Mhm.
you apply today, you'll go through the same process, and they will adjudicate it as they see fit through the DBQ. And like I said earlier, if you're taking medication, tell the doctor you take medication. If you're having a good day, tell them you're having a good day, but tell them what your normal is, what the bad day is like, so they can have that information as well. And they understand that, and it'll be rated as it was before.
yeah. So you were engaged by a lot of media last week. Can you tell us, kind of give us the highlights of how all those phone calls went? I was basically your handler last week. I felt, hey, can you talk to this reporter? Can you talk to this reporter?
It's budget season. I was going to ask for another assistant the way it was going. I was
Oh, come on, no.
um, uh, interestingly enough, it gets very hectic because obviously the people that are doing the reporting don't understand exactly
Mhm.
the nuances of what we do. Some of them may, but so you've got to kind of square that away. I think Task and Purpose was the first one that reached out. I did get an inquiry from the New York Times, but by the time we got to link up, the decision had been made not to go forward with this and rescind it. So we didn't.
Yeah,
I didn't have to speak to them, and it's repeating our message and making sure that people understand, and make sure you're consistent. We tell each outlet the same thing.
yeah,
Got some good questions, right? The questions are generally, what does the change mean? Or I don't have any experience in this. Can you tell me in layman's terms what it might mean? And then they understand, the better the way the process should go. and enlighten them, and then reach out to all those people. I did look the other day because I was one outlet had called me and I didn't see if they did their piece. It was CNN, and I didn't see anything, but I was just amazed at what pops up because, as you know, I don't have very much social media,
Yeah.
and I saw like 8,227 Figlioli quotes that basically said the same thing, that like somebody just must have repasted whatever you all do with those things on Bookface.
Oh, come on. Cringing. I'm cringing.
So yeah, it was hectic. I appreciate your assistance there, Rob, and all that good media training you've provided for us over the years.
Wow, too kind of you.
One of the places, somebody was in the room with me because I was between places, and they asked, "Are they going to print all that?" And I said, You're never off the record."
That's right.
Hey, you're learning. He's
You're
catching on.
Yeah, you're never off the record. The
Nothing is
mic's
off the
always
record.
live. The camera's always
And
on.
they did ask too. One of them asked, "Is this on the record?" I said, "I'm sure it's going to be." So
Well, Ryan, this gets to being bold and being out there and having a consistent message. And look, our National Veteran Service, and we talked about this before we got on this phone call, our National Legislative Service and our National Veteran Service for the VFW have been doing this since 1919. And we have only gotten better since that 100 and how many, 117?
Ish. Yeah, we're getting close to 107.
We're getting close, right?
When we hit national convention, I think it's
Yeah.
you know.
Where we've been able to do it, where now we have, more than 80 hours, am I correct, Mike, of training, VA accredited training, certified service officers who know what they're talking about. And this is great. And so that's why who better than you who understands, Mike, for me to take the report and say, hey, you got to talk to our director of National Veteran Service. So really thank you for doing that and really being that lead spokesman for us. Because a lot of times it's Ryan, a lot, it's Christina, it's whoever that we have talking about different issues. But this one is right in your lane for sure. And so that was great. But that's just a credit to what we do and what you guys do day in and day out for veterans. Because there's plenty of companies out there that, put the ball in the veterans court and think that they're doing something or just take their money, right, Ryan?
Oh, I think this is a good segue. I like where you're
very
going
good,
with this,
very
Rob.
good.
Yeah. There are companies like that.
Well, yeah. So one
Have
of
we
the
talked
things
about them before?
I think we have
Every
many
episode
times.
for like the last month.
Yeah, so
Last 2 months.
one of the new
Yeah.
news that came out was the ruling that was in Louisiana because it was a plus act, as a good friend of ours and VFW member had said, the Please Let Us Steal Act. That's not really what it means, but
No, no.
really it
Well, we
is
call it that.
a
Well, it does around our house.
it's some sort of compromise bill down there in Louisiana that the federal court down there struck down, said, nope, you guys
You
can't
know
do this.
what was funny about that is it didn't have to go that way,
Yeah.
But I know Ryan's going to talk a lot more about this because I went down there to testify. I testified before their joint committee, and what I learned under their process is if the governor doesn't veto it, it becomes law.
Right.
And that's what happened. Yeah.
And that's what
Yeah,
happened.
despite whatever he said to one party or the other or whatever promises he made, he just failed to sign it, and then it was enacted. Over to you.
All right. Well, that's a good segue. So, the last time we got together, we were talking about some of the positive momentum that we were seeing and some of the changes that were happening on the Claim Sharks front. This one's not as good news, okay? This episode's update is not as positive. So one of we were very happy that the federal courts struck down the Louisiana law and basically said that states couldn't carve out a cottage industry of their own when the federal government has spoken to how veterans can receive help with their disability benefit claims. Very concise ruling, very helpful. But unfortunately, the claim sharks are adapting, they're changing. I'll talk about our home state here in Maryland. You have full disclosure, the three of us live in Maryland. Okay. On March 3rd, the same day that our commander in chief is testifying before the House and the Senate in Washington, D.C., the state legislature is hearing their compromise claim sharks bill. And now here's the problem. This is what they're shopping around to other states. They took out the capped fees. So great, now they can charge whatever they want.
Right.
But it's the same carve out. They just create a cottage industry carve out. Now, what's really disappointing about this is, in Maryland, we're hearing that legislators and even some other veterans organizations are saying, well, we should really come up with a compromise, and this looks like a good compromise. I don't know what to say at this point.
Yeah.
We've heard it in other states, and look, right now in Kansas, in Kentucky, in Georgia, in other states, these companies are flying in from out of state and they're convincing state legislators to listen to them over the veterans that are in their own state.
Mm.
How does that work? The same thing happened here in Maryland too. I mean, every year for the past few years, VFW members in the state of Maryland have gone to the state legislature and said the same thing. Like, no, we don't want them operating in our state with impunity. That's what we're trying to stop. But state legislatures aren't always in cycle. Many state legislators, it's a part-time job. Like, look, you have a full-time job, and so you come into session and you deliberate on these bills, and that's when you make decisions. But and they come in, well, we want to compromise. We want to compromise. Well, these people aren't worth compromising with.
Yeah.
The legislation they're proposing is literally just carve out our industry so we can continue to do whatever we want. I don't get it.
Yeah. Well, I tell you,
don't understand it.
The way, how do they do that? How do they get in there? It takes money. And what's so crazy is that this is the money that they get from charging veterans, they're turning right around and putting some of it in their pocket and increasing their business. And then they're using it to lobby, to fly out to these different states, to go to these different places, to convince those state legislators, hey, you need to let us continue to do that. It's just so despicable. I can't believe that that's allowed to go on. But hey, right? That's where we are. So I tell you, the grassroots efforts from our states is what's so important, right? Let's take, for instance, last week's rally that they had in Iowa. So kind of give everybody a little bit of background. We talked about the last podcast that it was coming up, but our commander-in-chief, Carol Whitmore, was invited to go to the Iowa State House by a state representative there as they were doing a rally to help promote, push, bring awareness to the Major Richard Starr Act. For those that don't know, this is about concurrent receipt for Chapter 61 veterans, those that are retired early due to medical conditions that are not able to collect their retirement along with their disability. And this is where, that falls into. So they were pushing for that there. They passed a resolution because that's really all they could do there in Iowa, but it did pass to a resolution to help support and promote and to I don't know how they would do it with their national elected representatives to pass a Major Richard Starr Act. And so this is kind of that grassroots advocacy that's there at the state level. She did a fantastic job. They put it out the best they could. It's only there in Iowa. But other states, as a result, were reaching out and going, hey, how do we do something like this? How do we be able to put together a resolution to help support these bills? And I think that's where VFW members and the veteran community, to include our auxiliary, by the way, can come in and help support those efforts down there at the grassroots level, excuse me, so that way it can come up to the grass tops here in Washington, D.C. area. Oh, okay.
Yes.
So I'm done.
That's a long way of saying that
Yeah.
our members can make a huge difference when they engage on things. And we started off this episode talking about the voices of VFW members are what carried the day.
Yeah.
It's what, look, we have dialogue now with VA on that rule change for 4.10. We have dialogue at the state and federal levels on the Major Richard Starr Act. And we're going to keep pushing for real straight talk
Yeah.
on claim sharks.
Yeah.
And notice I didn't say dialogue, but
Straight talk.
um, because look, we've gotten a lot of questions about this, and states reach out all the time. Well, what is appropriate to charge? Well, look, we're nothing on initial claims. That's what the federal law is. And we're not really clamoring to change federal law because VA has a duty to assist. They
Hmm.
order your exams, they acquire all your records for you, and it's a non-adversarial process. So, our role in that process right now is helping to prepare and file paperwork and advocate on behalf of a claimant when we review their rating, and that's we're all trained to do that and accredited through VA to make sure we can do it responsibly. But there have been a lot of conversations with Congress about, well, what should the marketplace be? Well, it can't put veterans in debt.
Right.
It can't. And it can't just be a tacit legalization of what these companies are already doing, because that's why we're raising the alarm.
Right.
Their business practices are putting veterans in debt. They are exposing veterans to potential benefit fraud. We know these things. We've
Mhm.
reported them to the Inspector General, to law enforcement agencies. And so that's really what we're trying to stop. So, bottom line, long story short, if I were to wrap this up, what I would say to state legislatures considering this, first of all, it's unconstitutional, and that ruling is rock solid. Your states can't carve out a cottage industry when the federal government has already spoken to how this industry is supposed to be regulated. And second, you know, the reason the VFW approached your state legislature to rein in these bad practices is uh, because they're operating with impunity.
Mhm.
Creating carve out so they can operate with impunity is it doesn't work. It doesn't work for the VFW. We're
Nope.
never going to support that. And then third, if the federal government were to change its paradigm, come on, veterans are seeking financial relief. You
Yeah.
can't put a veteran in debt when they're seeking financial relief for a disability.
Right.
And we've tried to break it down. I've brought out the whiteboards and tried to map this out for people. Um, I think what was most disappointing is, our advocates in Kansas tried to do the same thing. They went in locked and loaded with all the information that they needed to really break down the the ridiculousness that the claim sharks were selling. But then the chairman of the committee turned to the room and basically said, "This is all propaganda." Federal class action lawsuits, a court decision ruling it unconstitutional, a letter of reprimand from the House Veterans Affairs Committee saying you misrepresented yourself in testimony. These aren't hypotheticals.
Right.
This is
Right.
well documented. Propaganda? Sure. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I don't agree
I,
at all. And I know
well,
it's just I don't agree with him saying it's propaganda. I mean, these are hard facts that you're just, here you go, here's the facts. And so it's got to be therefore after that. But people, who knows why they would say things like that in public. Not to make any accusations of what might be going on in the back end, but I tell you what, it just the mistrust that's there. I mean, there's kind of a through line there with our government and veterans. Uh, uh, when you work really hard to gain, you've had not a great track record with veterans and trust, and you work really hard to gain that trust back, and then you just do one thing or you say one thing, and it just blows it out of the water. And it's just, ah, man. If only these people can get in line. Anyway, as I'm
ah,
joking.
well, in the same context as Smedley Butler would say, we're gonna keep we're gonna keep taking this fight where it needs to be fought, which can I have a nice segue to our
Sure,
next topic?
all
Yeah,
yours.
which is, what we're converging on Washington, D.C. to do starting, later this week.
That's right.
This weekend, the VFW is flying into town for our Washington conference, or what have you been calling it, Rob?
WashCon.
Oh yeah. There we go.
But this is it. This is the midwinter at the national level for the VFW because there is business that goes on with our leadership, with our council of administration. We have our advisory committee for NVS, which is actually one of the very first meetings that goes on. Mike leads that one, and where you tell everybody that's there here, hey, this is what's gone on. And from there, the advisory be able to input. You can kind of talk about that, Mike, actually, because I don't think people really understand. Okay, other than the Council of Administration, where we kind of do the business, what are these other committee meetings do? And I think this one is the most consequential. So, if you could talk a little bit about what you expect to go on this coming Saturday.
Yeah, Saturday morning, 9 a.m., bright and early, kicking off the business session for the conference. It's one of a less than a handful of standing committees in our bylaws, the National Veteran Service Advisory Committee, or the NVSAC, which is excuse me, comprised of the current line officers, the immediate past commander in chief. I think that's the major makeup, and then the adjutant general will be there, the quartermaster general will be there, our general counsel will be there, and if you're in town and you're a member and entitled to remain, then come on in. But we give it's the semi-annual report of NVS to the leadership, so they understand what we are doing, what we've accomplished, where we're going to go. It's a regular thing, new business, old business. We'll review what we brought up in the last meeting because it meets twice a year. It meets at our national convention.
So it's kind of like your mini board of directors.
Yeah, exactly. And then we update what occurred from, the previous meeting.
Yeah.
So it should be a good discussion. Got a couple of new gadgets to show that we're kind of excited about. We've done some work on the website, VFW.org, and where you would find claims assistance and how we're now going to try to process your information to make it easier for you and manageable for us.
Yeah.
And obviously now getting into the 21st century here with APIs and the technology that's available. And then it's around the horn, everybody gives their inputs. Ryan will provide comments as the executive director to the board because
we don't want to be there all day.
At the end of the day, we are employees of the Washington office, which he's responsible for.
Yeah.
So
Now, I am excited about this one too because, we've always talked about ways to leverage technology to improve that experience, to enhance customer service, not replace customer service. And I think some of the stuff that your team is gonna showcase is really gonna help move the needle on that and make that experience better for veterans who need help navigating the process.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm glad you do that, Mike. For people out there who might be going, well, I can't get to DC. That information doesn't get down to me. It's not like that's the only time you brief. I mean, I think last week I was trying to get you in between those different media interviews. You were briefing state commanders about National Veteran Service, right? And different things were going on.
a little bit, yeah. The primary focus of that one was to kind of educate them a little bit more about our MOU, our Memorandum of Understanding with the National Association of County Veteran Service Officers, or NACVSO,
Yeah.
and why we want to cross-accredit them to work under the VFW umbrella to provide claims assistance. Because, as Ryan will tell you, having sat in this chair, one of the biggest things we hear all the time is in the States, we don't have enough money or we don't have enough people.
Right.
And we're a nonprofit. Dollars are not endless, and they've got to be invested and used wisely. And this is a way to expand our outreach to people that otherwise wouldn't be able to get to the regional office. If you've got a county service officer that can work for the VFW 2 miles from home, and let's say Denver, Colorado is a 75 to 100 miles from home.
Yeah.
I'd rather you just go the couple miles and get the exact same type of information, expertise, and get your claim in that way. And now with everything being really digital, it's a lot more convenient for that. So, and then we took questions about whatever else they want to talk about. Since most of them will be in town for the conference this coming week, and we'll have some follow-on conversations with a couple of departments that we need to explain some things to, or just make ourselves available to them to discuss VFW business in the Washington office.
Yeah, I think that's what's really important about that. It's not necessarily what you were briefing on. It's the point is that we are communicating and communicating down echelons below the national level. to get the word out. I mean, that's the whole reason why we have this podcast, is to talk about the things that we are pushing for in Washington, D.C., and that are, affecting the VFW writ large, that maybe not everybody has a chance to, or to be privy to, or be on the email chain, or, get into that briefing or whatnot. But I tell you, it is a great opportunity to bring in these grassroots advocates, our national legislative committee members, to bring them in to go ahead and walk the halls of Congress, to contact and to talk with and have office calls with their elected officials that are here to do the business on behalf of their constituents in their states. So, Ryan, we got a pretty full week going on, as we always do during WashCon. And I tell you, it's a little bit different. The Commander in Chief's testimony is going to be on a Tuesday, not a Wednesday. But again, we get that one hearing for ourselves, a joint hearing between the House and Senate Veterans Affairs Committees. You're going to be sitting there in the dais. What's your expectations coming up for that?
Yes, well, so really excited.
Are we
that
starting the lefty or righty, or what is that doing?
Well, both of you are actually. Both of you are going to be sitting on that.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, that's a really good point. No, I think this is going to be a very good hearing and a very good discussion. So our Commander-in-Chief, Carol Whitmore, she's really hot on a number of topics.
Yeah.
To include the Major Richard Starr Act, which you've heard a lot of us talking about that on the podcast recently, and the approach that we're taking, and the tens of thousands of messages to Congress that we've sent just in the last couple of months.
Yeah.
But she plans to talk about the Major Richard Starr Act and really share the story about why it's so important to our overarching theme of continuing to honor the contract that our service members, our all volunteer force commits to, and that our nation commits to. So in addition to those themes, we're talking about things like community care reform, reforming VA brain health, written informed consent for psychiatric medications. We're talking about I said Richard Starr, but but then we're talking about the Transition Assistance Program and the TAP Promotion Act. We're talking about student veteran issues with our 2026 class of VFW SVA legislative fellows who are working on increasing the book and supply stipends.
Yeah,
We're
that's
talking
right.
about toxic exposure for groups that were left out, like Fort McClellan or submariners or other toxic duty stations. So there's a lot. I think there are 11 specific bills that we're sending people around to talk about, seeking co-sponsors. We're talking about the Foreign Medical Program.
Right.
We're the only organizations talking about this because it affects our comrades overseas. And Carol has seen that firsthand. Rob, I think, yeah, well, Mike, yeah, I think the three of us have seen it
Yeah,
firsthand too,
absolutely.
as we've been able to travel with our line officers about how this affects veterans who are still supporting our missions as military civilians or Department of State civilians.
I think, you bring up a really good point, Ryan, and it just kind of break away from what we talk about, but it's a little bit of commentary. Each one of us have gone overseas with our line officers, traveled, visit with veterans, but I would say, especially in this day and age, when we've been out of conflict since 2021, or at least active conflict, we have service
So the
members.
story goes.
Right. So we have service members that are still serving around the world, and they're still looking at, oh, as soon as they get back to home station, they're going to be getting out of the military. So I mean, I remember going to Guantanamo Bay a couple years ago. There's still service members, National Guardsmen that are there at Camp X-Ray, still doing that mission, still looking, and then like, oh, well, when I get home, I'm going to have to get out. So providing that assistance, the TAP, the transition assistance, they have
Mike, do you want to
they
clarify
have a
what we
building
provide
there.
for
Yeah,
around
transition
here?
assistance program. They have
It
that
has a
there.
name.
Yeah, I know, right? Come on, Rob. But the point is that they have that there. I know that, and Mike, I think you've done that when you've gone to Guantanamo Bay. That hey, helping people out with their claims because they're within that window there, and that's just
We've
Guantanamo
helped.
Bay, right?
Yeah, we've made 2 trips down there.
They let you
We
out.
have a QR code down there,
Yeah,
and when service members are starting transition process on the island or just looking for some information, they'll hit that QR code, and then we're able to provide them the information they need to file their claim. Interestingly enough, we also did some work for Ryan talked about DoD civilians that worked there, that were former
Oh yeah.
military. Was able to help a couple of them while we were there. So, that's why we talk about these things, because I think everybody primarily associates those trips with active duty military and forgets that, there's a whole system of support that are prior military or DoD civilians that also require and have to use the same types of medical systems and then be governed by the same rules as everybody else. And sometimes, as we know, that can be not very clear and you need some help.
Yeah.
Well, it took a while to reconcile, but
Yeah.
NVS just hit a major milestone with not just providing those services through uh, online assistance, but another major step to providing it in person overseas based on the results of these visits, right, Mike?
Yeah, happy to, and we'll be talking about this at the NVSAC meeting, the National Veteran Service Advisory Committee, and I'm sure it'll come up throughout the week. But we finally were able to hire somebody for our long-standing open position in Korea.
Yes.
They'll come on board here in about a week, and then they'll be here stateside to clear their affairs here in the States before they move on to the Republic of Korea. And then in between those 2 points, they'll also do some NBS training, so they will learn what they need to know when they get on the ground. And really thankful to Jim Clark, who is the transition assistance manager in Korea, because he's really been
And
helping us get through
patient.
Yeah.
he's been really helping us get through the process and making sure that the dialogue between USFK and VA and DoD was ongoing, because it took us a while to get through some major hurdles before we could even really post the job.
Yeah.
And then we also learned, internally about the other things when somebody moves OCONUS, that bank accounts,
Oh
medical
yeah.
coverage,
Yeah.
apartment leases,
Oh yeah.
all types of things that we had to address before we were able to fill that position. But now that's filled, and hopefully we'll take these lessons learned from and apply them to any future expansions in other directions.
That's fantastic. And this is exactly why we go overseas, to be able to collect that information and knowledge about the foreign medical program, about transition assistance overseas, about filing claims overseas, veterans, that sort of help towards our veteran community, active guard, reserve, service members still serving over there, and bring that back and be able to bring that forward to our elected leaders on Capitol Hill and say, hey, look, this is where the issues that we're seeing. So super important that we do all that. And I'm really looking forward to WashCon. Ryan, any other thoughts on that before we move on?
Just some closing thoughts on it. Look, and I know we're going to try something a little bit different on Monday night too, where the adjutant general and our line officers are going to go down to the war memorials and really reflect on the nature of service and sacrifice and what that means. It's a test run for what we're calling the Bonus Army Memorial March, and really an opportunity for our advocates who are about to hit the hill to reflect on the service of the generations that went before us,
Yeah.
and why we're here in our nation's capital. I got to give a quick, background on some of this, some of the genesis of this. It's the confluence of a number of different things. So the grunt style relationship and a reverend warrior who do their silky hikes, which are a time to reflect, a time to talk about, mental health and connect with your fellow veterans. But then also, when we moved around the schedule for WashCon a couple of years ago, some of your states with smaller congressional delegations, they have their meetings set for Tuesday and Wednesday. They only have a few meetings to execute for the week. So what did they do? They went to Arlington National Cemetery. They went to the war memorials. They did this on their own. And so I really think what the Adjutant General is trying to capture here with the Bonus Army Memorial March is, let's do it together. Let's do what we were doing anyway, and let's do it together.
Yeah.
And let's do it with our partners. So it's going to look a little bit different this year. We're doing something different. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
But look, I think when we bring our people to Washington, D.C., these are some opportunities to showcase the great work of the VFW. And if you look at things like the regulatory change that came out on Monday, this is why it's important to be involved in a veteran service organization. Even if you're not going to post meetings or running for a department office, you can be engaged in our advocacy mission.
Yeah.
And that's the importance of our action core. And taking action when these things come out.
Yep.
People listen to you. You have a voice, and our goal is to help amplify it in whatever way that we can. And I'm excited to do that next week when Commander-in-Chief Carol Whitmore, who is the first woman veteran to lead the Veterans of Foreign Wars, testifies before her joint hearing. And teaser, she'll be on the podcast afterward.
That's right. We'll record another podcast, and the weather, it's thrown everything off and out of kilter, but it doesn't matter. I think it's more important to get that, hearing hot takes, so to speak, in podcast form with our Commander-in-Chief and all of you. So it's going to be really good. I'm looking forward to that as well. So what do we have left on our list there, Ryan?
In about 5 minutes, we got the good of the order.
We sure do. We got the good of the order. That's about it in 5 minutes. So, Mike, what's your good of the order?
Hey, thanks. Good to get everybody together. Really happy to talk about what I consider to be a really big win last week, not just for VFW, but for veterans. And then good of the order, we've got testimony prep coming up. So it's going to be homework time, and then we roll right into NVS training in April. So
Yes, that's right. That is coming up. So we look forward to that, and we'll talk about that as we lead in. Ryan, go to the order. What do you got?
All right, my go to the order. Look, I love hockey. I'm a hockey guy. And the United States won the gold medal in the Olympics for the first time since the Miracle on Ice.
That's right.
Really exciting.
46 years.
Yeah.
I was 11.
And the other side of this is both the men's and women's won in overtime goals, won the gold medal. So really, that was a proud moment. Really love USA Hockey and what they were able to accomplish. And
I hope
really,
that kid never gets those teeth fixed.
Yeah.
Oh, God. But also, it's really great that the NHL players are back in the Olympics. I think that had been missing for a couple of years, or for a couple of Winter Olympics. But really, it was great, and really excited for Team USA hockey.
Well, I think that's what I think that's what made the Miracle on Ice really a miracle, because they weren't pros. Those guys were like amateurs out of college and everything like that. So amazing. But a great tribute. As a matter of fact, from what I understand, one of the guys from the team, his grandfather was on the gold medal 1960 team. His uncle was on the 1980 team, and that's
so who's good luck?
Legacy, right? Talk about a legacy. So my go to the order is actually kind of related to that. I invited a small contingent of Canadian veterans to come down and see what we do for advocacy. So I met this guy by the name of Dave Morrow. He's a podcaster, veteran advocate in Canada. He served in Afghanistan, like many of us post 9/11 veterans did, myself included. And, they have a lot of different legislative issues that they put before their parliament. And it's very different. They face very different issues, but a lot of it's the same, and for them being our NATO partners, during that conflict, for them to come down and to just see how the VFW does things, kind of a fly on the wall and watch all the things. I'm really looking forward to being able to engage with them, and then catch can with all of you to sit down just for moments, because we're going to be super busy, but just to kind of like pick your brains and to hear your thoughts when it comes to veteran advocacy. Go easy on them. I know that they're thoughts and prayers to our Canadian veteran brothers and sisters that are hurting from this gold medal match, but
the World Series and the Olympic hockey. It's
so it's gonna be 3 fights in 9 seconds.
Yeah, right. Yeah, maybe we can all get some Molsons and make peace with one another. But hey, thanks guys for being on the podcast. Really appreciate this. Hopefully you're able to dig out and we can get back to the office and get back to business.
All right. Thanks, Rob.
Yeah, thanks. And for all of you out there, thank you for watching, listening to the VFW podcast. Make sure you like, subscribe, follow us on social media, and listen to us wherever you get your podcasts on your favorite platform. And until next time, I'm your host, Rob Couture, reminding you when it comes to the VFW, we are still serving. Take care.
Thank you for listening to Still Serving, the VFW podcast. To get the latest news and information from the Veterans of Foreign Wars, make sure to follow, like, and subscribe to us on social media at VFW HQ, on Facebook at VFW Fans, or visit our website at vfw.org.